The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
Year one of the 16-team Big 12 football era is in the books. Regular season is in the rearview mirror, and it was an eventful one. So many twists and turns in this crazy, unique conference that is still taking some time. It's going to take a few more years, I think, to get a feel of one another, but you could sense the intensity in many of these games as the home stretch to Arlington took place, and we got the Big 12 championship game now in front of us next week. Arizona State and Iowa State will square off for a Big 12 title. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry with you. We cover this league inside and out, Big 12 football, every week here on First and 12 throughout the football season on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone. And every week on this program, it's our favorite segment of the show. We dive into the Big 12 Power Rankings.
The Big 12 Power Rankings, a weekly rank of all 16 programs, from the elite to the bottom dwellers.
You know, this is an interesting one this week because we already know how the league is shaking out. Like the regular season is over. You know who's going to be the Big 12 championship game. You know who's going to be, obviously not playing in any bowl games, things like that. So from a standing standpoint, Mitch, it's already just right in front of you. All season long we bicker about it, but somehow we have found a way to still argue about some of these placements of the power poll this week. And I think we came up with one where we are both in agreement. And so let's just jump in right here with the very bottom of this conference. Maybe the biggest, weirdest turnaround, the worst type of turnaround, and that is to go the other direction. Mike Gundy and the Oklahoma State Cowboys are 0-9 in conference, and they end the season after going 3-0. They end the year at 0-9, a 9-game losing streak, including every single one in conference. It's an absolute shock.
It is, and Arizona was an absolute shock. They check in at number 15 as we work away from the bottom to the top this week. Arizona was a huge disappointment this season to finish 4-8 after last year. I mean, just for context, last year at the end of the season, Alex, I thought they were one of the 5 best teams in college football. I thought they could go toe-to-toe with anyone in the sport nationally. They were playing they were at such a high level, and to finish 4-8, man, what happened? And I think a lot of people in Tucson are pointing to Brent Brennan. Feels like next year is going to be a critical year for him, that he's got to turn it around because there's going to be a lot of finger-pointing. When you have Tet McMillan and Noah Fafita and you only get 4 wins, man, that's a missed opportunity.
You think about all the talent that Oklahoma State brought back, that Arizona brought back. UCF comes in at 14, and we were wondering about this one. Obviously, you put Utah ahead of them because Utah beat them head-to-head, but UCF absolutely fell off, and part of the reason is because that program is going to have to be torn down to the studs. They're going to have to figure out a new head coach, as Gus Malzahn announced after the game. I'm taking a job at Florida State as their new offensive coordinator. Utah checks in at 13. Again, a team with a lot of expectations, a ton of talent as well, and a lot of senior leadership, and so much of it just evaporated this year with the injury of Cam Rising, and then just devastating injury after devastating injury. I've never seen something like this across a handful of seasons now for the Utes, Mitch, and it's just a sad state of affairs. But, if there's you think about UCF and what they have to build up from, and then you think about Utah, and, the Utes are built different. And Kyle Whittingham and the program that he has and what they have up at Utah is built different. They are built to be able to bounce back and be resilient, and I think you're going to see a turnaround of that Utah program.
Cincinnati checks in at number 12, and it's one program that through 2 years in this league, they have no sense of identity, in my opinion. They have no real inclination that they're moving towards something, and missing a bowl game after starting 5-2, real disappointing spot for Cincinnati. Number 11, Houston. Look, I think that moving on from the OC is going to be a good thing for Willie Fritz because they were terrible offensively. But that defense, and we saw signs of that against BYU on Saturday night, that is a legit defense. Yep. And last week they gave Baylor everything they could handle. We've seen how good they've been offensively. They held Baylor to only 20 points. Houston's got some potential, and it's weird to think though that Houston is probably going to be built on defense because historically you think Andre Ware, Klingler, Case Keenum, great offensive play, but it feels like it's going to reside on the defensive side for Houston. And number 10, West Virginia Mountaineers, they got to 6. They're going to go to a bowl, but it still feels like that fan base doesn't like Neil Brown.
Well, it does, and you know what? They're probably like, the old Leonardo DiCaprio meme where they're pointing at, oh, see, he's not good. Look, he's 6-6. He's not any good. But yeah, it's interesting because Houston. I'll go back to them for a second because at 11th in our final power ranking of the season, wild because that's actually higher than I think we thought they would have finished. Right? I mean,
no question.
The reality was we put them at the very bottom, and we thought they were going to end kind of at the very bottom. I think we may have had Arizona State worse, but even then, Houston has always been one that you and I have been like, ugh, they look bad. But they pulled out of a tailspin there. West Virginia at 10, like you said. Kansas, we're going to have them at 9. But you know what? They played really, really, really good football the last month and a half of the season, and I think they're turning things around. Their record kind of stinks. I mean, they're 5-7. They're not going to a bowl game, and we have them ahead of teams that are going to bowl games. So I think Kansas is turning some things around. Kansas State, absolutely disappointing for Chris Kleiman and his guys to round out their season with just a flop at the end there, not playing very well. Avery Johnson looked banged up. They didn't have all their guys put together, and their toughness and their physicality just was nowhere to be seen, it seemed like, throughout this season for the Wildcats.
Texas Tech at number 7, and it's been an up-and-down year for Tech, but 6-3 in Big 12 play, solid record there, and to get to 8 wins, something they haven't done in 15 years, that's a nice accomplishment for Joey McGuire, but still, it feels like can they do something more? They're going to be the team next year that probably gets a lot of buzz and a lot of hype. They lose Taj Brooks. I believe Baron Morton, I'll have to check on his eligibility. I never know what the eligibility on these players. It's like it's always a mystery anymore with COVID.
We're coming around to some normalcy, Mitch.
We
having
are.
all these COVID guys.
We're
COVID guys
so
are
close.
gone, man.
We're getting so close, but Tech has always got that just ability where you feel like, man, they can be something special. They just never are. But I think this season was solid for the Red Raiders this year in the Big 12. Number 6, TCU. Nice turnaround for the Horned Frogs after a disappointing season a year ago at 5-7. They came on strong late, and they had a gritty, tough win in inclement, snowy weather in Cincinnati over the weekend. I like what I'm seeing from Sonny Dykes' program, and they are killing it on recruiting. They got a top 25 recruiting class that'll sign on Wednesday on signing day. TCU's got tons of potential too.
Baylor, probably one of the bigger shocks that we've seen, right? Just from the beginning of the season turnaround, not just what we thought they would be versus where they are now, just to where we thought they were going to be about 6 or 7 weeks ago. Dave Aranda and his guys have won 8 games in the regular season. They're going bowling. They're keeping him, and they've done very, very well to wrap up really a good season for Dave Aranda and their guys. We have BYU at 4. Considering that a couple of weeks ago you had them at the very top of the list because they were undefeated, 2 out of 3 weeks that they've lost, of course, put them on a different track, and so they end up at 4. And I think that's about where they are right now because Colorado seems to be playing better football, I think, overall, even though Colorado has a worse overall record. BYU is 10-2, and Colorado's 9-3. But I don't know. It just feels like Colorado's playing a little bit better football right now. And frankly, I think number 2 on the list might be playing worse football than number 3, but you know what? Colorado, you don't beat Kansas, and you join BYU underneath where you should be because you're not in the Big 12 championship game.
I know Iowa State's going to the Big 12 championship game, but I was tempted, honestly, in this power ranking to put Colorado above them because, Colorado just – I don't care who it is. I mean, you beat anyone in this league 52-0. I mean, that's impressive. Like, ask BYU – how tough it was to get the best effort from Oklahoma State. And part of that might have been Oklahoma State just rolling over and giving up on the season. Might have been. But, Iowa State, they have not
Rocco Beck's not sharp right now. Abu Sama's not the runner that he was last year. And frankly, they look a little bit out of sorts. And, Matt Campbell has his guys dialed up usually. But their best football was toward the beginning of the year. I think BYU fans can probably relate to something like that. Iowa State kind of plateaued. And that is not where the number 1 team in the entire conference is, not plateauing. They're absolutely skyrocketing in the stock market of Big 12 football. Arizona State is our number 1 team at the end of the season in our Big 12 power poll, and they deserve to be there. They're going to be the Big 12 championship game in Arlington, and I just don't see them losing to this Iowa State team in the championship game.
Arizona State, what an impressive performance in Tucson in a rivalry game. And getting the message home from Kenny Dillingham to finish the job, because they've had a tendency in past weeks to kind of let the team get back into it in the second half. K-State, BYU, they did not let that happen against Arizona. And I just thought, Leavitt was brilliant, too. We all know about Scadaboo, but Leavitt, the quarterback, I mean, he's starting to get comparisons now from Arizona State fans. Is he their new, Jake Plummer? Like, he's kind of that guy. And with him being a redshirt freshman, if he stays around and stays committed to the desert, man, you're talking about a guy that could be a 3-4 year starter, and he's doing this already. You can't ever assume anything in this league because it's so volatile from one year to the next. But to get to this game after low expectations, and again, to factor in where they were as a program. I mean, Herm Edwards burnt that house down. I mean, Arizona State was left with nothing. And Kenny Dillingham steps in. He gets a bowl ban last year from self-imposed from the school. Had no idea that was coming and just kept working. And, look, Kenny Dillingham's a character, and he's probably going to be one that has a lot of detractors probably in this Big 12, but he's got a strong, contingent. He's really activated, as he says, the Valley, and they're supporting that team for once. And I'm with you, Alex. I think they're going to smoke Iowa State, and I just think that Arizona State is going to show up, and they're going to get to the playoff. And you know what? I hope Arizona State, whoever they play in the playoff, Notre Dame, whoever it ends up being, I hope they give them a game. And I think they could, because they are playing at their best at the right point of the season, and it's great to see.
No, look, if Arizona State plays Notre Dame, no question. What about an Ohio State team even that didn't have any offense? Like, if they get kind of plugged into the college football playoff for no reason, you could see Arizona State showing up and showing out, because, again, it's about how you're playing at the end of the season, and they're playing phenomenal football right now. And some people are trending the other direction. They're going to end up in the college football playoff, unfortunately, because that's just the way that the system's set up. So there you go. There's our final power poll and our power rankings of the Big 12. So there you go. We'll take the break here. We'll come back. We've got more to break down for you. We just have tons to talk about still, even though we only have that 1 week left of the conference championship game itself. We'll come back. More to go. It's 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone, and it is, of course, the KSL News Radio, where you can always find Mitch Harper on Cougar Sports Saturday and on Cougar Nation. We'll be back. More to go.